Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/rive to receive the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Artificial intelligence continues to be all the rage right now with investors, especially after NVIDIA reported a great first quarter of the fiscal year and reported incredible guidance for the second quarter. But I want to take a step back today and talk about the four things that I think we need to understand about artificial intelligence. And that'll give us an idea where we can look for competitive moats and businesses that may be worth investing in. I'll talk about a few examples here in this video as well. My name is Travis William. Thanks for watching Rive Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And the first thing that we need to understand is the model itself. An artificial intelligence model is a trained piece of software that you're going to then input a prompt into to get some sort of output. These models are created by companies like OpenAI, Stability AI, Meta, Google. There are a number of different companies that have their own artificial intelligence models, and those models come in different shapes and sizes. Some of them are very large, like GPT-4, and some of them can be relatively small. We have seen that researchers have actually put one of Meta's models on a smartphone. So there's going to be a broad range of use cases, model sizes, parameters. That's kind of like a proxy for the number of inputs to a model. The more parameters, theoretically, the more accurate or more dynamic a model could be. But a smaller model that's built for specific use cases may actually be very valuable for something like being on a smartphone. So that's really the first thing to understand is the model itself and how those are built and how those work. One of the things that I want to highlight is there are currently two types of models: proprietary models and open source models. Proprietary models are models that we can't necessarily access the model itself. So when you go to ChatGPT, examples of this would be Google's models, OpenAI's models, GPT-4, GPT-3, things like that. And then all of the models that are offshoots of that. But there are also open source models. Stability AI's Stability Diffusion is an open source model. We have also seen Meta open source some of their models. Now, no, those aren't going to be used for commercial purposes right now, but it's possible that we see them open source some of their models in the future. So one of the interesting things for investors to think about with that is how much value is there in the model itself? Because if someone can just open source their model and then people can use that for free, does that lower the value of other models? It's something to think about as we think about the companies that actually own the models. The second thing to understand is the inference. That's each discrete use of the model. So when you type a question into ChatGPT, that is an inference. That is calling the model and saying, hey, I want you to create an output for me. The same with Midjourney or any of the other models that I've talked about. Pretty easy to understand. And that goes into the third piece. Most of these models are both built and the inferences are run on the cloud with GPU hardware. That's why the leading company here is NVIDIA. As companies are building out their capabilities to offer more AI services, they have to build out data centers in the cloud. That means buying more NVIDIA GPUs. That's the reason that the data center side of the business in NVIDIA is expecting to about double over the next quarter, and that's expected to maintain at a really high revenue level throughout the rest of the year. That's what their current guidance is, what they've given an indication on. So what we're seeing is a bunch of companies say that the quickest and easiest way for us to deploy artificial intelligence, whether that's from building a new model or whether that's from offering new instances and new use cases, the quickest way to do that is in the cloud by building out these data centers. That's exactly what we're seeing. So Microsoft, Google, all of the small startups, all buying up as much compute power as they possibly can and building that in the cloud. This is why right now the hardware company that is benefiting the most is really NVIDIA. Now they obviously make hardware and software, but selling more chips really drives their business. Long term, the thing to think about and the thing to watch is how much of this compute, the inference itself, is going to move to other devices that are not necessarily in the cloud. Do we see models end up on an iPhone or on a Mac, on a PC, on Android devices? If that is the case, that's going to pull some of that compute demand from the cloud to on-device services. That could change the dynamics in the industry. That's not quite what we're seeing yet, but something to keep an eye on in the future. So that hardware piece is something that I think we know where we are today. NVIDIA is the clear leader there, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be the case forever. The fourth component is the product, the actual thing that you're interacting with. ChatGPT is a product. ChatGPT is not a model. GPT-4 is the model. They're running an inference, but what you interact with is ChatGPT, the product. Midjourney, when you go into Discord and use Midjourney and ask it to make an image for you, that is the product. I have shown FinChat, that is a product. These are the things that we actually pay for and interact with as consumers or as businesses. And that's really a space that's extremely dynamic right now, changing extremely quickly, building on top of a lot of these models that I talked about earlier. So there's not a lot of moats right now. There's a lot of companies kind of throwing things at the wall, trying to figure out what they're going to do with artificial intelligence. And that's on the product side. Small number of companies building models, a very small number of companies building hardware right now, but a lot of companies experimenting with products. So where does all of this end up? Well, the one company that I think wins no matter what we do with artificial intelligence in the future is Taiwan Semiconductor. And the reason is Taiwan Semiconductor makes NVIDIA's chips, they make Apple's chips, they make a lot of chips that go into Android devices, they make AMD's chips. All of these chips are made by one foundry. That's Taiwan Semiconductor. It's going to be a clear winner long term. You could include some of its suppliers like ASML in that list, but that's definitely going to be a growth area for them and a tailwind, no matter which chip is running artificial intelligence. NVIDIA, I think, is definitely going to see some tailwinds, but the stock is extremely expensive right now, no matter how you slice it. And from a product standpoint, the clear leaders right now, they definitely have a business in AI, are companies like Microsoft and Meta and Google. Those are the really big names in tech right now. But I think it's becoming kind of clear that this is going to be an incremental increase in their business. We don't know what those disruptions to the business potentially will be long term. So those are the companies that I have in mind right now, and the way that I'm thinking about artificial intelligence with those four dynamics. Who is building the model? Is it open source or is it proprietary? Where is the inference happening? Isn't it happening in the cloud or is it happening on a device? What is the hardware that's running that inference? Is it an NVIDIA GPU in the cloud or a new custom chip made by somebody in the cloud? Or is it custom silicon on the device that you're using right now? And then finally, what's the product itself? What is the actual thing that we're interacting with? Those are the four things to keep an eye on. We'll see what kind of moats are built in artificial intelligence, but hopefully that gives a little bit of background on how I'm thinking about AI. If you're interested in reading more about this, I will post an article in the show notes that I did for asymmetric investing. That's my newsletter where I'm covering asymmetric investing opportunities. A couple of my picks have some tailwinds in artificial intelligence, absolutely something I'm keeping an eye on. So check out that newsletter there if you're interested in more on artificial intelligence. Don't forget to follow Rive Investing. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.